His name was Michael, and for as long as anyone could remember, he was proud to say he was a Jew who stood firmly with Israel. He grew up hearing stories about how his people were always under threat, always misunderstood, and how the only way to survive was to stay strong, never show weakness, and stand together against their enemies. In his house, Muslims were not just followers of another religion. They were the other side, the side that hated them, the side that wanted them gone. No one in his environment questioned that narrative, and neither did he. He heard it at home, in the synagogue, on the news. For him, it was simply reality. Michael loved order. He loved rules. He believed the world needed people who would stand between chaos and safety. That belief led him to join the police force. When he put on the uniform for the first time, he felt he was doing something almost sacred, protecting his people, his city, his values. Everyone at the station knew he was Jewish and passionately pro-Israel. Whenever something happened in the Middle East, colleagues would come to him for his opinion, and he always had one. When the war in Gaza escalated in October 2023, his emotions ignited. Old stories resurfaced. Fear, anger, and a strong sense of us versus them. Watching the news, he repeated to himself, "We are defending ourselves. They hate us. They started it. We are just surviving." These lines became like a personal creed. Then the protests began in his city. The first demonstration was a rally in support of Israel. Naturally, his supervisor assigned him to that detail. These were his people, his community. On the day of the protest, the streets filled with flags, chants, songs, and slogans. At first, he felt at home. He recognized faces from the synagogue, old friends, familiar families. But as the crowd grew louder, something in him began to shift. The chants changed from, "We stand with Israel," to "No ceasefire." Then a group of young men shouted, "Flatten Gaza," followed by laughter. Someone said, "Turn it into a parking lot." Another voice added, "Good, they breed like rats." Michael froze. He had heard harsh talk about Palestinians before, but hearing it shouted publicly with such joy, while people waved flags and smiled, shook him deeply. These weren't internet trolls hiding behind screens. These were people he respected and greeted with shalom every week. One man who knew him from the community slapped him on the shoulder and joked, "Mike, you guys better keep those pro-Palestine animals away from here. They don't belong on our streets. If they come close, just look the other way, we'll handle them." He laughed as if it were nothing. Michael forced a smile, but inside he felt sick. He was a police officer. His duty was to protect everyone, not look the other way. That night, he tried to dismiss the unease. He told himself, "They're just angry. It's war." People say things, but a quiet question began whispering inside. Is this justice? Is this what your faith taught you? 2 days later, he was assigned to a different protest, a pro-Palestine march. This time, his uneasiness came from another place. He had been raised to see Palestinian flags as symbols of hatred toward him and his people. He expected rage, chaos, maybe even violence. When he arrived, he saw Palestinian flags, but also signs saying, "Ceasefire now," "Stop killing children," and "Justice for all." There were women in hijabs pushing strollers, young men holding their younger siblings' hands, elderly people walking slowly with canes. He patrolled along the edge of the demonstration, listening closely. People chanted, "Free, free Palestine." Their voices were strong, but other words caught his attention. A man with a megaphone shouted, "We are against oppression, not against Jews. We are against occupation, not against a religion." The crowd repeated after him. When a small group of teenagers started yelling something more hostile about Jews, a bearded man wearing a kufi turned to them. "No, we do not hate Jews. We are here for justice. Choose your words carefully." The teens went quiet, clearly embarrassed. Michael also noticed a woman holding a sign that read, "Our neighbors are Jewish. We want peace, not revenge." He heard her explaining to a little girl, "Not all Jews are bad people. We are against injustice, that's all." That moment hit him like a storm. All his life, he had been told that Muslims wanted Jews dead, that they celebrated Jewish suffering. Yet here he was, watching Muslims separate Jews as a people from the actions of a government, and policing their own crowd against hatred. That night he couldn't sleep. In his mind he replayed the two protests side by side. The laughter at the idea of erasing Gaza from his own community, and the calls for justice and restraint from the crowd he had been taught to fear. For the first time he allowed himself to ask, what if I've been wrong? What if the story I was given about these people is not the full truth? Curiosity pushed him to his laptop. He searched, what does Islam say about Jews? Expecting to find verses full of hatred, he instead found passages that spoke about some Jews doing wrong and others doing right, recognizing complexity, not blind hatred. He read that Muslims believe in Moses, Abraham, and the same one God he had worshipped all his life. Then he searched, what does Islam say about war? He discovered teachings that clearly forbade killing innocent people, women, children, and the elderly, and warned against unnecessary destruction. He read statements attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prohibiting the killing of non-combatants. Piece by piece, the image in his head began to crack. If these teachings were real, then the monster he had been taught to fear simply did not exist. Over the next weeks, he started driving to a nearby mosque, at first just sitting in his car, watching people go in and out. They didn't look like villains. They looked like families, workers, students. One evening, he finally walked inside. A man greeted him with a warm smile and said, "Welcome, brother." Michael quickly responded, "I'm not your brother. I'm Jewish." "I just have questions," the man replied gently. "You are still welcome. Ask anything." They sat together for hours. Michael asked about God, prophets, Jews, and Islamic history, and the political conflict. He expected anger and blame. Instead, he heard about justice, mercy, and coexistence, along with honest criticism of oppression. Each visit left him more unsettled and more at peace. He realized his issue had never been with Islam itself, but with the way it had been misrepresented to him. One night, alone with his thoughts, he stripped everything down and asked himself, what do I truly believe about God? The answer surprised even him. He believed God was one, that he sent prophets, and that Muhammad might truly be one of them. He knew what accepting that would mean: tension with his family, rejection from parts of his community, mockery at work. Still, the feeling wouldn't fade. It was as if a door to truth had opened, and he could no longer pretend it wasn't there. He returned to the mosque and asked the imam, "What does someone do to become Muslim?" The imam answered, "You testify with your tongue what you believe in your heart, that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger." With his heart racing, Michael thought of his past, his identity, his badge, his community. Then he thought of truth and the cost of living against his conscience. He repeated the words after the imam, declaring that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger. In that moment, Michael became Musa. He chose the name of the prophet Moses, honored in both Judaism and Islam, as a bridge between where he came from and where he was going. Life did not suddenly become easy. Some family members cut ties. Some colleagues mocked his new faith. But when he stood in prayer, forehead on the ground, he felt closer to God than ever before. He would always remember the turning point: one uniform, two protests, and the shocking contrast between hatred from those he trusted and justice from those he feared. That contrast shattered a lifetime of prejudice, pushed him to search, and led him, step by step, to Islam.